Hello, my name is Jasontraynorcouncilcandidate. I'm here with Anna and run for City Council, and she will ask me questions that's on her heart.
Okay. So this whole question and answer thing, as I said in the email, we've been doing since 2017. We send out questions for every election to all of the elected officials and everything and ask them these questions. Since our Red Lights for Firefighters primarily focused on the firefighters and the first responders, we ask questions regarding fire safety, fire response. You know, pretty much that's what our questions are, because we want to support the candidates that support the fire department. So that's the whole reason that we do this. Plus also this gives the voters an idea of who is supporting the fire department and who may not support the fire department. So that's what we're looking at. So the first question is, what is your standing on the Watertown City Fire Department and its firefighters contract, or lack of a contract, with the city, which has been going on for about 7 years now?
I do support them, and I think the city has not treated the fire department well through the contract and through lawsuits. And I think what needs to happen is they need to sit down with the fire department and see what we're able to pay them and take care of them. Because currently we have, 15 firefighter members. And I'm not sure if we're able to pay all of them, you know, their rates of pay. Overall, I do support them, and we need to sit down and fix the contract and see what we can do to take care of our firefighters.
Okay. How do you feel about the minimum manpower staffing of 15 firefighters? Do you think that the fire department should keep the 15? Should they go with less manpower, or do you feel they need to go with more manpower?
That's a tough question. I think for the side of the city, we do need that type of firefighter members on call in case we have a fire. The only caution I have is, can we afford it? You know, when you're talking a fire chief that I think we pay them $80,000 or something around that, and we have a budget, we have to balance the budget and make sure we can take care of our police department and fire department and treat everyone the same. So it's a tough thing right now. I'm not sure exactly what to do. But I think, Anna, is just sitting down and talking to them and see what we can pay them for their contract and treat everyone fairly. I think that's the best thing we can do for them.
Do you feel that the citizens and the firefighters will be safe at less than the current mandatory level of 15 members of the Waterfront Fire Department?
I don't think we will be. No, because we need them fully operational. If there's a fire, we need as many to go to that house and to put that fire out. So 15, I think, is the right number. We just have to figure out how we can afford it.
Should the city utilize the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grants, or SAFER grants, for hiring new firefighters or not? Now, in case you're not really familiar with that, what they typically do, if I remember correctly, is they get a grant, I believe from it's either federal or state, I'm not exactly sure, but they get that, and it goes, originally it was going to pay for, I think, the first year or something of hiring on new firefighters and their training and all that. What they're trying to do this year is the SAFER grant this year would allow for approximately 3, I want to say, firefighters to be hired, and it would pay for their salaries, their benefits. It would pay for that for the next 3 years, I believe. The SAFER grant has always been for hiring new firefighters. There has been a couple of instances where the city has rejected the SAFER grants, and these are things you don't have to pay back. It's free money, essentially, for the fire department. So do you think that the city should utilize those SAFER grants for hiring the new firefighters or not?
I think so, yes, and I think if the city can get grant money to help alleviate the cost of the 15 firefighter members, it won't be so much a burden on the taxpayers. Yes, I totally agree that we need to utilize the grants to help lower the costs for the taxpayers to pay for the fire department.
All right. And who do you feel should dictate what the Watertown Fire Department does or does not do? Do you think the council, mayor, or city manager should decide what the fire department and firefighters do or don't do, or should the fire chief and his staff make the decisions on what the department and the firefighters do?
I think if we're talking about the fire department, I think it's the fire chief in the inner circle, because they deal with things every day, like the fires and things going on in the city. So I give it to the fire chief and the firefighters, because they know what they're doing and they're trained, and the city council members just do policy. They don't understand the inner workings of a fire job.
Should the city manager, the mayor, and the council members participate in a program called Fire Ops 101, which allows government officials and members of the media to better understand what it is like to be a firefighter and to experience what the job actually entails and the demands of the job? Conducting a Fire Ops 101 event exposes participants to the smoke, the adrenaline rush, and the physical stress and strain that the firefighters and emergency and medical personnel face while protecting communities across the United States and Canada. Do you think that that's something that the city government should participate in if it's given?
Yes, that way they will have a direct understanding to understand what our fire department goes through on a daily basis. Yes, I do support and recommend that be a training course that would be mandatory, that the city council members would have to attend and go through, and the mayor himself.
And is that something that you would participate in?
Yes, I would. Yeah. Because how are you going to know what a organization goes through if you don't witness what they really go through and be a part of it, the training?
Should the city have allowed the contract dispute to go to arbitration, or should they have settled the contract in a civil and timely manner as they do with all the other departments in the city?
They should settle the matter quickly instead of costing the taxpayers thousands of dollars. They should have just took care of it and settle the dispute and given the fire department the money they needed.
Now, should the city be cutting the Watertown Fire Department positions or not?
I don't think they should, and I think 15 is a good number. Anything more than that, then we gotta have a bigger city. But the 15 members, I think, is a good number to start with and keep.
Should the city be required to fill any open positions in the fire department that have either been left vacant or those that will become vacant with retirements and such?
Yes, they should take care of that beforehand, so that way we don't have lawsuits or disputes about the services that people want and don't have. But yes, they should take care of that beforehand.
Should the city reinstate firefighters into the Code Enforcement Bureau, and why or why not?
Are you mostly talking about the code safeties in apartments and houses, stuff like that?
Yeah, I guess what they used to do is there were some firefighters that were part of the codes department, so that they could go and inspect for like fire violations, fire code violations, and things like that, and then they stopped doing that. So should the city reinstate the firefighters into the Code Enforcement Bureau, and why do you think so or not?
Yes, if it's next to safety and to have the sprinklers and smoke detectors working properly. Like I live in an apartment complex, and we have those things, and they are a life-saving asset. And yes, I think they should be restated and do the codes inspections and make sure everything's working right.
Should the city reinstate the prior law that allowed code enforcement and the Watertown Fire Department to do annual inside inspections of all residential buildings? Why or why not?
Yes, they should, and also put caution that they would give their residents like 24 hours notice. Basically, in apartment complexes I live, I'm not going to mention exactly where, but they do give us a 24-hour notice, and I would say yes, only if they give us a notice that they're going to do those. That way we can prepare, people can prepare and get ready for that inspection.
Should the city reinstate the prior law that allowed code enforcement and the Watertown Fire Department to do annual inside inspections of all commercial buildings, like stores and things like that?
I think so, and also I'll say the same thing. They should give them a warrant or a notice that they're going to do those things. But yeah, as long as they give them a notice that we'll do those things, we're going to do those things.
Should the city bring back the public safety education officers? Why or why not?
Are you talking like in throughout all the city hall and buildings that are accessed by the public? Are you talking about schools or?
Regarding the public safety officers, we're referring right now for the situation for the fire department public safety education officers, and what they would do is they would go to schools and different things like that, and they would teach fire safety.
Okay. Yes, I would support that, because the kids can be more safer and have public safety officers walk around and make sure everyone's okay. Yes, I would support that.
Okay, should the city go back to charging for false alarms like they used to do that helped cut the number of calls the fire department responded to, which worked well previously to reduce false alarms due to malfunctioning alarms? Why not?
What percent was it successful? Could you tell me? Was it 40, 50, 60% that they would do that would force people to not?
I don't know what they charged, but I do know that, because I'm not a lifetime Watertown resident, so I haven't been here the whole time, but what I do know, just in doing a little bit of research and stuff, is that they used to charge fines for, like, what they would do, for example, is, let's see, a common one is like the children's home, for example. Okay. The children's home, or not the children's home, sorry, the dorms, JCC dorms. Those fire alarms are always going off. And there's other buildings that the fire alarms go off a lot of apartment buildings and things like that, the fire alarms go off. And what they are is it's a faulty alarm.
Right.
And so the fire department goes out there and investigates and everything. They find out it's a faulty alarm, they do a reset, all this kind of stuff. And then a couple days later, even as little as a couple hours later, they'd be called back to the same place and it'd be the same thing.
Right.
What they started doing, as I understand it, is they started, like, they would give you like 1 or 2 warnings, you know, hey, you need to get this fixed within a certain period of time. And then if they didn't, they got fined.
Okay.
Because a lot of times what will happen is like these people that own the buildings and things like that don't really care that the fire, you know, the alarms are malfunctioning and stuff. And since they're not being held accountable, they're not going to do anything about it.
Right. I do support if they give them like 1 or 2 warnings, probably 2 at the most. I would support that idea as long as they gave them a written warning 2 times, and if they didn't fix it, yes, they would get fined or whatever the city could enforce on them.
So New York State has a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector laws currently on the books that dictate what rental units should have in them. What should the city do to make sure these laws are followed, and what would you do to ensure these laws are followed?
It's a tough one. The best thing we can do is inspect. You know, go around, inspect the buildings, the businesses, the apartments, commercial, retail, and make sure they're following the rules and they're taking care of that problem.
So the next 7 questions are going to be regarding fire sprinkler systems. We'd like to point out that 2 alarming facts about the city of Watertown. One is that the lack of sprinkler legislation. The second is regarding incidents that have happened and the consequences of those incidences. In 1989, Watertown had no legislation requiring fire sprinklers in its own Watertown Housing Authority apartments. Because of a fire at Midtown Towers, around 6 residents died. Only after those deaths did the city start requiring fire sprinklers, and only on their own properties. With no residential sprinkler systems, a family of 5 died on Myrtle Avenue in 2019. Today, structure fires gives you less than 3 minutes to escape a fire without sprinkler systems installed. So that just gives you a little bit of information about the systems. Should the city pass a law, ordinance, or regulation that mandates automatic sprinkler systems in all new homes built in the city? Why or why not?
I think they should for safety reasons, because if it saves a life, and that's terrible what happened in Midtown Towers many years ago, that they didn't have the sprinklers. So I do support that that they have the sprinklers working and operational, so that way we can save lives.
Should the city pass a law, ordinance, or regulation that mandates retrofitting of automatic sprinkler systems for older rental apartment buildings and rental units in regular homes as well? Why or why not?
Yes, I do support that because, again, same answer is saves lives. When the city says you have to do something that is beneficial like that, I am on board, and yes, I would support it. That all houses would be set up with sprinklers.
And regarding automatic sprinkler system installation and retrofitting, the cost is a lot less than it has been, and there are low interest loans and grants the homeowners can obtain to cover the cost. Plus, the city can assist those who may have trouble covering the cost with the community block grants or other sources of funding if they went that route. Would you support a law, ordinance, or regulation for sprinkler mandates if there was assistance for some homeowners who may need it? Why or why not?
Yes, I would support that with the grants. So if they have the money to buy the sprinklers to outfit their home, yes, I would support. Again, safety matter. I want people safe if I become a city council member, because that's part of my job, is to help people safe and happy, and to make this place a very safe place for everyone to come here and live.
If an automatic sprinkler system law, ordinance, or regulation is passed, should the city choose not to raise the property taxes on the homes that are retrofitted to comply with the law or ordinance so that it appeases those who must spend money for the retrofitting?
I believe that if we're going to talk about, mandating and requiring city residents for sprinklers, we have to find out a way we can get the grant money, as you explained to me, that they can take care of all the houses that don't have sprinklers. So I do support that the grant money and people look for ways to get that, because it's, again, safety matters.
Should the city utilize the community block grants or other sources of funding to help the property owners who would not be able to obtain low interest loans by other means?
Yes, if the city has block grant money that's able to help out the taxpayers that are not able to afford it, that way we can help them feel like they're appreciated and the city does care about them. And yes, I would support something like that.
Okay. And the last one on this line of questioning, should the city create local law, ordinance, or regulation mandating fire sprinkler systems in all commercial structures without any grandfather clauses?
If we're gonna treat everyone equally about the sprinkler system and that they need one if they can't afford one, I would say no on that, because everyone has to be treated the same way. All the residents, if they can't afford it, we gotta find out a way that we can help them to get the sprinklers they need.
Okay, and yeah, because what the grandfather clausing would do would be to buildings that are already here or a certain age wouldn't be required to have the sprinklers put in.
And that wouldn't be fair, that wouldn't be right.
So you would support not having any grandfather clauses then?
Yes.
The assistance is there.
Yes, because I want everyone to be treated the same. So if a bailment or a tenant can't afford sprinklers, I want everyone to be treated the same. So yes, I would. It's a little tricky question, so I have to think about it.
Yeah. It's worded a little bit different.
Right. But I like to be grandfather in there. That's the way I would see it, that everyone be treated the same.
Okay.
If they need help, they need help.
All right. In 2017, Congress passed legislation to help with the cost of installation of sprinklers for small businesses. Section 179 of the IRS code allows small businesses to write off the full cost of commercial fire sprinklers as an expense up to $1.04 million. And the tax incentive says, small business section 179 states, section 179 of the U.S.